Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the crew of the Blue Box Files as they investigate the strange goings-on and arrive at episode 567. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn. How is everybody tonight?
Doing okay.
Just hanging in there, huh?
I was sick last night.
Oh, that's
for
right.
A random reason. I had no idea why.
So you
Just
don't
had a fever out of nowhere.
Oh, wow. And you don't know what
Yeah.
it was? No viruses
idea.
or anything?
Not been exposed to anyone that was sick with anything. Did 2 different COVID tests. Nothing. No other symptoms either.
It's probably those
Like
mystery...
maybe a little sore throatness yesterday, but that was about it.
It's those mystery viruses that you guys are tampering with out there at the lab.
Yeah. I was going through a big pile of junk.
Seasons don't fear the reaper.
I'm pretty sure the KDHE lab doesn't have anything that could be that deadly.
So
I need to confirm nor deny.
You wouldn't say if you did. Well, did you guys do anything or watch anything this week?
I watched a Doctor Who documentary.
Well, of course you did. We both watched it. We all watched it.
We all watched that one. I finished Stranger Things 4.
And?
Which I really enjoyed. I kind of wish I had gone back and rewatched this previous seasons because it really pulled so heavily from its own history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would have been nice to have a better refresher than the one-time watch I did on season 3, especially way back when. But I liked it. I thought it was good. I'm looking forward to the final season whenever that's going to come out, if it ever comes out.
Yeah, they'll be in their 30s and it'll take place in the 90s.
Yep. I did see a headline that, they had a plan for addressing the age jumping that's happening.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Especially the way the season 4 ends. It makes it seem very imminent, and you can't have a big time jump if it's imminent.
That's true. That's very true.
I felt like some of it was they wanted to have these characters back but didn't know what to do with it. But all the actual Hawkins stuff and the backstory on 11 I thought was very interesting. The Russia stuff, that was kind of meh.
Did you cry when Eddie died?
A little bit. Got a little teary. And got a little bit teary about the stuff with Max, too.
Yeah, that was rough. I figured she was going to bite it, too, but...
She almost would be better off. I mean, the way they left her, unless she somehow makes a miraculous recovery, that's not much of a life.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was Lucas's reaction to it was what was really, that was hard.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Sean?
I got caught up in a couple of older ones for Halloween. I watched The Halloween Tree, which I had never seen, the Ray Bradbury animated, which is pretty good. A cute little story about, the origins of where certain Halloween traditions come from. And then I watched Red State. Which I don't know how much that, qualifies as a horror film. I'm not sure what to think about that one. Like, it wasn't bad at all. It was a little schizophrenic because it's 2 movies. The first half is horror movie, young kids being lured into sex, going to be set upon, and then the other half is let's have the ATF guys storm the compound. But it was not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not sure Kevin Smith was the one to direct it.
It was definitely a different movie for him.
Yeah, very much so. And then I watched Once Upon a Studio again.
I did get around to watching that.
I finally did watch that too.
Yeah. That was cute.
You did or not, Glenn?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Isn't it the best thing ever?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's nice seeing all those characters together in one little short.
Interact with each other.
Yep. I can't say that I watched anything. I think we caught up on Loki, watched episode 3, but
So good.
I think that's about the only thing that I did. We went to Robin Hatter Players, the theater group, did their improv show tonight, their fall improv show. It was a lot of fun. That was pretty much it.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitzsafried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
I did do one other thing recently, which is I listened to the Paternoster Gang Trespassers 1 Rogues Gallery. And that's going to be my something new 2-minute review. So this, out of the gate, just takes off. And very much, you know, we talked about how we missed the Paternoster Gang. In fact, that was one of the reasons I picked this back up, because I missed them after listening to the Once and Future that featured them with the 10th Doctor. And it's just a joy to listen to those three together play off of each other so naturally. It makes me lament the fact that we've still never got a television series with them, because I would love to watch them in action as well. But this one's broke up into 3 stories. The first one, kind of Halloween appropriate, is about some ghosts in a traveling show. And I can't say much about that because without giving away some of the things in the plot. But the first story is really good. It's a lot of fun. The bad guy, or sort of MacGuffin, kind of takes a little twist at the end, which was quite interesting. And then the next story is actually written by Dan Starkey, called Symmetry of Death. And this one I felt was the weakest of the 3 stories, because he sort of had to lead into the rest of the set with the next story. So he was kind of confined to having sort of this simple little story, which I didn't think was all that great, but the way he's written the characters is spot on. And then the last one is Till Death Do Us Part, and this one actually features the 8th Doctor. And I thought perhaps because this is Madame Vastra and Ginny have decided to have an official wedding, because they never really officially got married. And so they're going to have a wedding, and I thought, oh, well, this answers my question as to which version of the Doctor was at the wedding. But it doesn't, because a lot of things go crazy. Doppelgangers of all of our characters start showing up, and then it ends with a cliffhanger. And this is the last story of this box set. So now I have to wait for the next set to come out in order to resolve it. And I highly recommend it, and I'm excited to hear the next box set, which we probably won't get for another year. And that is my something new 2-minute review.
Had you listened to the previous Paternoster box sets?
I hadn't, and that was one of the things that concerned me. But this one starts a story arc all anew, so you don't have to have listened to the previous stories. it is helpful to be familiar enough with the characters, but you don't have to have listened to anything prior to this. And now that's the nice thing about this is now I probably will go back and start picking up the old sets in between now and the next set that comes out, because I really, really enjoyed listening to them.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Travelling the Vortex.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
All right, well, let's do a quick convention recap. Coming up, Saratoga Comic-Con in Saratoga Springs, New York. That's the November 18th and 19th, and that's featuring Eric Roberts. Wales Comic-Con in Telford, UK, also November 18th and 19th of this year. That's going to have Alex Kingston, Paul McGann, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Peter Davison, and David Bradley. And, of course, the big one, Chicago TARDIS here in the U.S. that eventually we're going to get to. It's within a drive away. I'm surprised we haven't been there yet. I know they've been asking us to come up. That's in Chicago, Illinois, and that'll be the November 24th to the 26th. That is Thanksgiving weekend for those of you in the U.S., and that'll have Lisa Bowerman, Michael Troughton, Colin Baker, Carol Ann Ford, Peter Davison, Fraser Hines, Sylvester McCoy, among many other guests. And that's going to be kind of a fun one because that's going to be part of our news coming up. But with the special releasing that weekend, they may be able to do a watch-along.
Yeah.
Speaking
of that news, they have revealed the 60th anniversary dates, the air dates. The first one, The Star Beast, will air on the 25th of November and will drop on Disney Plus the same day. Not sure on the time yet on Disney Plus, but we do know it's coming on the same day.
Well, they haven't announced the time for the UK, right? Just the date.
Right, just the date.
Okay.
Yeah. Wild Blue Yonder will be the December 2nd, and then The Giggle will be December 9th. So that's this Saturdays, the 3 consecutive Saturdays in a row. And we got some awesome posters.
Yeah, the posters look great. I really, really was impressed, and I sent the side-by-side to you guys. I was really, really impressed that they kind of emulate the Doctor Who issue number 1 from the U.S. cover that has basically the same framing with the Warreth warriors on each side, the Doctor in the middle, and then the companions over each shoulder with Meep there to the left. And I didn't even occur to me until I was flipping through some other pictures, and I went, oh, wait a minute. This is the same. It's not the same, but it's very similar. So I was very impressed that they took that approach.
That's pretty clever.
Mm-hmm. Wild Blue Yonder doesn't really give anything away other than some weird robot in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we get our another glimpse at Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker in the background of the Giggle, with the playing cards coming out. That's actually a really cool picture too. The playing cards kind of flying at the camera or the viewer.
And
neat
David
stuff.
Tennant's trying to touch me in all of them.
Yeah, it's reaching out to touch you. Reach out and touch someone. Reach out. Oh, for young listeners, they might not even know what that is. Keith, you know what that is, right?
Yeah, I do.
AT&T. Okay, gotcha. What else do we got?
Well, Series 15 filming began this week.
Yay!
I didn't even realize they were that far ahead in planning.
Yeah. Well, they finished.
I guess
they ramped season 14 like 2 or 3 months ago, and they said that they were going to just get right at it and get to Series 15. But I was even still surprised that it's already happening now. So,
second season with Shooty, and we haven't even seen a full episode with him yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that they have faith in his performance, that they're not waiting to make sure, people like him and the ratings are good before going on with season 2.
Well, this is probably the first time that we've not seen a Doctor on air and already guaranteed 2 seasons. So.
Yeah, it's true.
There's not going to be wondering when he's going to leave for the next 2 years at least.
Yeah. Although he's made some comments about returning to the theater, so it might be a 2 and done.
Well, maybe that's why they're getting a bunch shot, so that he can take a break and then come back and film another season after that. So,
because if it's a yearly plan, season 15 won't air until 2025 at some point.
Right.
So he could do a whole year-long run before even needing to come back to film again.
Which might be the plan, and then he comes back at the end of 2025 to film season 6. So, with them doing the shorter seasons now too, that's probably easier on them.
Yeah, that's true.
Who knows? Maybe in January they'll start filming season 16, and then he'll have a full 2 years. He can do whatever he wants.
Maybe.
Start filming the new season in January, and then in March the first season will air and in April we'll get his retirement notification.
Right, that's true. That's a good point.
Hopefully they would keep that under wraps for a little bit. Although they didn't with Eccleston,
that's true.
Right around the time the first episode airs, they announced he was leaving.
Wasn't that for us, though? I thought that was in the U.S. when the first episode aired. We found out he was leaving.
I thought it was pretty early on in his run, regardless.
Yeah, maybe it was. I don't know about the UK, but I know we knew he was leaving by the time the first episode aired here, because we got it like a full year or so later. So.
That's true.
What else we got?
The last bit of news is the British Film Institute did a showing of the Underwater Menace, the animation. And there was a Q&A with the team, and they have confirmed that there is more work to animate more 60 stories on the way. They were told, the quote is exactly, "There is more coming," and they hope to complete the entire missing back catalog. Were a little tempered in saying they do them one at a time. Each new production is being commissioned based on the sales of the previous one. But the good news is that the pre-orders of Underwater Menace seem to be strong enough to justify the next story, whatever that is going to be.
Oh, we may know that.
We may know that, but we don't know for sure.
Oh, believe me, I'm going to talk about it after you're done.
The company obviously wants to continue and do all of them, and I think fans, for the most part, want that as well.
I saw there was some rumor that the Savages would be next on there. Was it the Savages? Yeah. No, the Smugglers would be the next one on their list.
One of the articles, this article I have up now doesn't mention that, but one of the other ones I saw said that too.
Yeah, okay.
I had heard that as well.
So that's exciting stuff. Of course, if the Mirror is to be believed, we'll be getting the Celestial Toymaker next, and we'll be getting it sooner than we think. Because according to a blurb that came out in the actual newspaper section today, because we can't find the silly thing online, we can only find scans of the actual newspaper. And TARDIS Central was one of the ones that has the scan. It says, Doctor Who fans can expect plenty of fun and games in the next animation thanks to the Celestial Toymaker. The character will appear in the hit BBC show this autumn after being brought back by Russell T. Davies for the final special marking the show's 60th anniversary. Neil Patrick Harris will play the immortal being who exists only to play games and cause havoc in other lives. But the Celestial Toymaker, as a William Hartnell story from 1966, will also be brought back to life in cartoon form after the master tapes were wiped years ago. Batman star Michael Gow, Inset, which there's a picture of him, Originally starred as the villain alongside Allo Allo's Carmen Silvera and former Blue Peter star Peter Purvis, which I love the fact that that's what he's known for.
That Doctor Who star. Blue Peter star.
Says, but only part 4 of this story still exists in the BBC archives after a copy was returned from Australia in February 1984. An insider said, for many fans, the Celestial Toymaker is one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever. I'm not sure how true that is either, but... So if the Mirror is to be believed, and we have always said it is a tabloid magazine, so take whatever they say with a grain of salt. However, we always tend to follow that up with, their track record has been pretty good. So there's a good chance we may be getting an announcement soon on the Celestial Toymaker animation. I wonder if that's one that maybe they have done, and they have been holding back, and they may drop that on iPlayer as a special thing.
Maybe on one of those dates that RTD said was going to be important.
Right. So it might be interesting to see. The other thing that I think they could have considered doing was doing a truncated animation of it to kind of take out, because there's a lot of tedium in it. There's a lot of drawing the story out, if I remember right. And there's a couple of controversial things in it. There's, as we talked about in one of our shows, the meaning of celestial can be derogatory as well. So I think that there's a chance that we might get even a smaller version of it. Like maybe they've cut it down and they'll do a Marco Polo to it. I don't know. But I guess only time will tell. I'd love to see the whole thing animated. I'd love this to be a big surprise next month. Feels kind of like it would have been more fun had the Mirror not spoiled it for us if this in fact is true. But there was no avoiding this because it was everywhere today on Twitter.
I think it'd be a nice surprise for the anniversary.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially since the last big anniversary, we had actual episodes returned to us.
That's true, yeah.
Maybe they just got it mixed up and we actually got the actual episodes returned. That's what's going on.
This is a bait and switch for us.
Yeah.
It'll make the surprise even better when we find out that all of the episodes have survived now.
In animation form.
They all say, who is Doctor Who?
This is Tim Trelaw.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller. This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
Well, speaking of anniversaries, we are reviewing this week 30 Years in the TARDIS, which was the 30th anniversary special that they ran back in, what would that have been, 1994, in between the TV movie returning to our screens.
93.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, 93. Oh, yeah, okay, yes, 93, because we are actually reviewing more than 30 Years in the TARDIS, which did air the following year in 1994. So 30 Years in the TARDIS was basically a documentary celebrating 30 years of Doctor Who, was narrated by Nicholas Courtney, and who played the Brig, for those who may or may not know. And we actually don't have access to 30 Years in the TARDIS, but we do have access to more than 30 Years in the TARDIS because it was an extra on Shada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we decided that we're going to take a
summary.
Look. I'm going to turn it over to you. Hang on. But we thought we'd take a look at maybe some other ways that the anniversary was celebrated in the past. So we're going to look at this one. And yeah, if we've got a summary, let's hear it.
Following the first episode of the first ever adventure on November 23rd, 1963, Doctor Who became to many viewers, the most consistently imaginative, inspiring, and good-humored series on British television. The 7 doctors and their various assistants are fondly remembered, and their relative merits hotly debated by generations of fans. This special documentary, made by a lifelong fan of the series, brings together doctors and their assistants to recall 3 decades of time travel, endearingly cheap special effects, and monsters. Classic clips, interviews, behind-the-scenes anecdotes, and even Doctor Who bloopers feature in the special birthday tributes.
I was hoping that you would have paused just a little bit longer so that Sean could have prematurely did the dump again.
I was there.
If you'd have paused just a little bit longer.
Sorry, I had to swallow.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
Bum, bum, bum.
This is fun.
Yeah.
I like it specifically for the nostalgia factor of it. The fact that we look back and step back through 30 years, but it's a product of its time as well, if you think about it, because it's shot in 4:3 ratio, because that's what televisions were back at that time. And which is, typical for classic Doctor Who, but it's very much in the style of how things were kind of presented in those days. You know what I mean? That's kind of how documentaries, especially lower budget television documentaries, were. They would use not even a running, I guess I should say a running theme, not even a running story, but a running theme with the little kid going through and having the little cutaways to him as he's imagining himself, engaged in the adventures of Doctor Who, and then intersplicing the clips of the show and explaining the how things came about, all the way down to the little interludes that I don't know, I remember how he described them, but and then it would be whatever happened, about the Daleks or about the. So I thought that was kind of neat, and from just like I say, a nostalgia perspective as well, because again, a lot of this stuff that is in this is like the book that we read a few weeks ago. It's all stuff that we already know. It's fun to kind of look back at it and get some clips and some behind the scenes clips that I don't think I've seen them. I'm sure they're on the respective DVDs that have come out with certain shows, but to kind of get glimpses of them on this was kind of fun as well. But but just the nostalgia fact of watching something that I easily could have watched, back in the 1990s, and it kind of takes you back to that era of even that style of documentary making.
Yeah, it's obviously has, as it should, that 1990s feel to it, which is fantastic in and of itself. And plus, I was impressed by kind of the depth of how far it goes into the show, and the fact that they got to talk to Verity Lambert because she was still around, and all of the interviews that they got to do, because almost all of these actors were here, and when they couldn't, they talked to William Hartnell's daughter and all of that. I thought was really nice. Granddaughter, sorry, yeah. And the fact that they even tackled, the movies, the Peter Cushing movies, and talked to Roberta Tobey, I thought was really a nice. Obviously the person who put this together was a very big fan of the show.
Mm-hmm. I mean, speaking of the people they talked to, they had Barry Letts, Terrence Dix, Philip Hinchcliffe, as you said, Verity Lambert, Jessica Carney, who's the granddaughter of William Hartnell. It was interesting to see a lot of these people that have passed too, because Letts and Dix and even John Pertwee. Now the clip that we got of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, obviously had been recorded previously, because he had passed by this time as well. In fact, not long before this, but he had passed as well. Terry Nation, of course, again, that was another clip that I think was not
archival.
Yeah, was archival clip. But a lot of these people that we got to see, clips of were people that had passed already. Elizabeth Sladen.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool seeing a young Sadie Miller.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
And it was kind of cool
John
seeing
Nathan Turner, another one who's passed.
We're all used to seeing a lot of the current bonus features that they've been putting together on DVDs and the interviews, and older versions of Terrence and older versions of Barry, and seeing the younger versions of these people was really cool to see also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I was really kind of surprised at just how much I enjoyed this. Like you said, Glenn, it was like I wish I had seen it 30 years ago when it was released, because it would have given that connection back into it. But there's a lot of it that I don't know for the hardcore fans how useful the information is. A lot of the stories are ones that we've heard before, but it didn't matter because it just had that quaint charm to it. And as you said, seeing how things were done and people from that day and age, and just really cool.
Well, also trying to put it in the perspective of somebody who might have been watching it at the time. Doctor Who wasn't on TV, so the fact that there's this documentary kind of reliving the show I would have loved, I got an extra thrill out of that, trying to put myself in that mindset.
Well, because the videos had just barely started coming out by this time as well. So there wasn't that wealth of information, and all of this video, some of this behind the scene stuff probably would have been brand new at that time. It ends up on DVDs later as extras, but a lot of that stuff was, people were seeing that behind the scenes stuff for the first time. And they got very creative with it, because they got, monsters. They had monsters outside that they had, people dressed up and walking around. They had the clips with Carol Ann Ford and the Daleks roaming around. They kind of recreated that scene of the Daleks going across the bridge. And so just all of that detail that they put into it, you could tell that whoever put that together really wanted to show some love for the show, which is ironic that the show got canceled in '89 when it was still this popular and popular enough to get such a nice treatment, 5 years later.
Yeah.
Interesting. One of the things
I really liked how...
Go ahead.
I really liked how they framed the interviews for the fans. Behind the sofa. I thought that was a really clever way to go about interviewing the fans, to make it more than just a standard talking head.
Speaking of, had we watched this in '94, we might have known who Toya Wilcox and Mike Gadding were, the actress and the cricketer. Yeah. Well, and Toya Wilcox was an actress. That's all I knew about her, because that's all it said on her little lower third.
She kind of looks familiar. I don't know why.
Lowry Turner, who was a fashion editor, apparently. Again, if we lived in the UK and saw this at the time, we probably would have known who these people were.
Yeah.
No, a lot of fun. Glad that we have it. Glad that it's available. I mean, it's one of those things that, it's an extra on a DVD, but it almost kind of stands out, because while they needed something to go with Shada, because there wasn't a lot to put on that disc with it, it was kind of nice that they said, well, here, piece of history that goes with it. It kind of gets spotlighted that way too, because it shares the title on the disc with Shada. So, people get a chance to see it. And if you haven't seen it, be sure to check it out, because it's a lot of fun. It's a nostalgic viewing.
My one thing with it would be, and I don't know why, but there was hardly any Fifth Doctor love. Like Peter Davison wasn't interviewed. I don't think any of his companions were even interviewed. So they talk about him a little bit, but they seem to gloss over him predominantly, other than the transition to him. I wonder why that was.
They didn't talk to Tom Baker either at the time, but there are a lot of clips of him.
That's true.
In fact, they showed the commercials too.
I guess I didn't really expect Tom to do an interview for it,
especially back at that time.
Yeah, what we know of Tom from that time period, and he didn't seem like it was within his character. But I wonder if Peter Davison was just busy or what the situation was.
Maybe he was.
Obviously, he was a very busy actor.
So and this is on our schedule to do as well as another anniversary special that might have been. But when they were talking about doing the Dark Dimension, which would have been the special that would have reunited all the surviving Doctors, and then that kind of went south. I think Peter Davison kind of took that. He didn't. I don't want to say he took it hard, like he was upset that it didn't happen. He just. I think the way it transpired made him angry, and I'm wondering if maybe when they came to him to do this, he just decided, no, I'm kind. He was still maybe in a mood and decided he didn't want to do this, or maybe he wasn't available. I may be just imagining up something that doesn't really exist. But I know at the time that he was a little put off by the fact that the Dark Dimension ended up going the way it did, and so maybe he just didn't want to be available for it.
Of course, if they had included him, then they probably wouldn't have been able to do some of the other cool stuff they did.
Well, that's true. Would have made it even longer.
Maybe the Peter Cushing stuff would have gotten cut if they hadn't gotten Peter Davison to it. I don't know.
Cool was it to see some love thrown that way?
Really cool.
Yeah.
Acknowledging it, I think that was neat.
And even playing who's who.
Yeah.
I also liked really seeing all the ads and like how they even interspersed ads like it was a commercial break of Doctor Who related ads. I thought that was really clever also. The Prime Computer stuff we kind of knew about, but the other ones I thought was pretty cool too.
Yeah, the Prime Computer ones, I think. The first one I liked. The second one's just awkward.
Yeah, that's obviously real life bleeding through.
Right. Good stuff. Highly recommend it. Get a chance to see it. And kind of grateful that even though Doctor Who was off in that, in the wilderness years there, that they did take some time to recognize the 30th anniversary. And I feel they did a pretty good job of it. It would have been nicer to see an actual Doctor reunion, I think, but this was second best thing we could get, I think.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to our next review.
Doctor Who Redacted, Season 2.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
The return of Doctor Who Redacted.
We're the Blue Box Files podcast. Mr. Dexy, do your sausages contain extraterrestrial DNA?
A 6-part science fiction thriller from the worlds of Doctor Who.
But let's talk about the Blue Box Files. Introduce us to it.
Basically, it's dedicated to uncovering the truth about an enigmatic cuboid shape which seems to appear at times of historical upheaval. Pompeii, it's there. Titanic, it's there. You name it, there's sightings of a strange blue box.
I think the Blue Box is our guardian angel. There's someone inside it, keeping us all safe.
But there's a new traveller on Earth.
My name's Apex Costa. I'm looking for the Doctor. They're in grave danger.
The Doctor is missing. Something is amiss with their timeline, broadcasting on all intergalactic frequencies.
Attention to anyone out there who can help. The Doctor is missing. I repeat, the Doctor is missing.
And a new villain.
Surrender and prepare to welcome the Right Honourable Lady Honor Bray.
With the worst kind of small talk.
When I want something, I really want something. Do you know what I mean?
I guess so. I do want an air fryer.
And I want a TARDIS.
But with no Doctor.
The Doctor can't be gone. We'd know. Somehow we'd know. The sky would be collapsing on our heads.
It's down to 3 friends to save the world.
I know this is stressful in about a million different ways, but you don't need to hold my hand so tight.
I'm not holding your hand.
This thief has got to be stopped. Some really dangerous artifacts have been stolen, enough to start an interstellar war.
Put me down!
Fatal force committed.
Please! Please, I can't breathe! Please! You're crushing me!
But can they save the Doctor?
Doctor, no! Get away, it's a trap!
Subscribe to Doctor Who Redacted on BBC Sounds.
Cleo Proctor is officially over it. Her life is a mess and her best friends, Abby and Shauna, are lost in a lesbian love-in. Life sucks. She's lonely. She wants the Doctor to take her away from all this, but they're not returning her calls. Then Cleo discovers reports of mutant rats in London Docklands, and things get interesting.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, me too. I don't think that this series was as good as the first series. I think that what I liked about this one is I don't feel like we had to spend a lot of time discovering the characters, which worked really well because we're in season 2. We already know these gals. We know, what's behind their motivations for doing this. And I think one of the things that made me mad initially is the fact that Abby and Shauna immediately write off Cleo when she's investigating these rats. They've clearly from season 1 had enough experiences with close shaves with supernatural. Now they didn't remember or go through the ghosting thing that Cleo went through when the Doctor arrives, but so they don't understand from her perspective. But I really felt like they should have given her more of a benefit of the doubt in this. And so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way right off the top of this. And I think that they felt like they needed to quickly develop some conflict so that they could...
They had a reason to separate them.
Exactly. And then build to that climactic, emotional back together. Why, we'll never abandon you again type thing. And then they really do. They come to the rescue. I mean, even though it's long distance, Cleo and Abby and Shauna really do come to the rescue, thanks to, which was a great inclusion, Ronnie Chandra, which, voiced by Anjali Mohindra.
Yeah. And even going so far as to bringing in Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
Jumping all the way to the end.
Terrific. Yeah. That was wonderful. And giving, is it Abby or is it Shauna's? It's Abby's the computer tech, right? I get the two confused. They're together so much that I get them confused. But anyway, one of them being a computer tech and giving her some time to shine with the fact that, she does manage to reboot him. She does manage to, help him take control of the big robot that's attacking Cleo at the end. I thought that was really cool. To give her some credibility as a character in the story.
Well, and just the fact that they go so far as to connect it to Ronnie Takes on the World.
Mm-hmm. That was neat. Yeah.
I can't remember if they did that last season or not.
Well, I
just have her show up, but the fact that they directly connect it this time was fantastic. She just shows
up in the first one, and that was before the finished audio came out. So yeah, they didn't. In fact, she's not in the first one that much. She just kind of cameos in that one. This time they give her a lot bigger part. And I love how they all kind of fangirl over her, but she's almost as much enamored by them as they are by her, which I thought was kind of a neat little trade-off thing.
What did you guys think of Apex?
It's complicated.
I felt he was very one note. I felt like his motivations were really kind of empty. And by that, I don't mean that he didn't have motivations. It's just he comes across as this hero guy at the start. And when we find out his true colors, that he's trying to collect the TARDIS for, what was her name?
Honor Bray.
Yeah. And then we find out that there might have been a relation between those two. And then we find out that, well, it was kind of a one-sided relation. And all the while he's cozying up to Cleo. And I don't trust him the whole time. And obviously, Abby and Shauna both immediately knew. And then at the end, they kind of left it in this way that, all was forgiven. And I really kind of felt like he didn't do enough to redeem himself to merit and all is forgiven kind of ending there. And so that was kind of weird, but And I didn't think that the actor, was it Freddie Carter? He was just kind of, I don't know. He was just kind of dry.
Yeah, I thought the writing on him was very inconsistent. It felt like they, we can trust him. No, we can't. We can trust him. No, we can't. I just kind of wish they could have stuck with one kind of situation instead of. I never knew fully what to believe, what was coming out of his mouth,
yeah,
and what Honor was said about him. I still now I don't. I guess he is really from Origin, but I'm still not entirely clear on that.
Well, that's just that they don't do enough to make us trust him by the end that we could really. Yeah, it's almost like we're left with him and Cleo, and it's like, well, I really like Cleo, and I'm still very suspicious of you, despite what everything has happened so far. I kind of felt like a big brother that was still being very protective.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character suffers a little bit from the classic problem of how lovable can we make the rogue to excuse the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And, Captain Jack has elements of that in Empty Shot Dr. Dances. He eventually won us over, largely by doing the right thing. Apex never really got there. Even when he did the right thing, it was, I did this. Yay, our team. Okay. Yeah. I felt he was really inconsistent with, as Keith said, with the way he was written, that, he cares so much about the underground. No, he doesn't. I mean, that's kind of apparent from moment one. He's a people trafficker. Ding, you had it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't just to cover expenses. I don't think so. And as it goes on, and Honor comes and kind of unloads and says, "Well, this is what he really is." I don't think any of us were surprised by these revelations. Right. It was kind of like, oh yeah, that figures. Cleo was obviously surprised by these revelations,
but then again, she's supposed to be,
yeah,
as the character in that situation.
But just that waffling made it difficult to, I hesitate to say, care about the relationship. But it made it difficult for me to be concerned, because then it was just a matter of, all right, hurry up and get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Hurry up and get to the shoe droppings so that we don't have wishy-washy Cleo. Or hurry up and get to the twist where he's not evil and he is as great as everybody thinks, and I'll go, oh, okay, cool. But didn't quite get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think had he not, at the very end shown up next to Honor, even though it was kind of begrudgingly, had he kind of swooped in and saved the day more than instead of siding with the bad guy, essentially, I would have been a little more forgiving about the inconsistencies, because then he would have proved himself. But then, obviously, by the end of it, he was just looking out for himself.
Yeah, that's true.
And I thought Honor was very one note as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't realize it until just now that was Mercy Hartigan from the next Doctor, same actress.
Yeah, that's right. But I didn't expect more from her character than what is portrayed in the audio. So I didn't necessarily have as much issue with the fact that she was kind of one note, because I kind of expect that particular character to be one note. But I suppose when that's your heavy as far as the villain goes, because Apex doesn't turn out to be the main protagonist in this. She is the one that's supposed to be carrying that weight. I suppose that maybe you want a little more from her, but I don't think I was all that disappointed with the fact that the way that the character was portrayed.
I guess I would have liked a little bit more, other than the greed is a fine motivation for me. I don't have a problem with that. I guess I was hoping for a little bit more motivation from her besides the spurn lover aspect of it.
I will say as well that I was initially shocked and then kind of pleased that the resolution is, as the 12th Doctor says, you're going to have to sit down and talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just, let's go out for a coffee. What?
Well, the abrupt nature of the way they did that too, I thought was kind of clever, because it sounds like she's going to go to blows, and then the next scene they're sitting in a coffee shop talking it over, and I thought, well, that was kind of a neat way to kind of end this, especially in audio, because that's all this is talking, and so I thought that was kind of a great turn.
I mean, can you imagine if the Doctor did that? There's just
took Davros to a coffee shop.
Tim Shaw's on the rampage and coming, and hey, you know what?
In the finale,
let's go get a coffee.
In the big finale of the episode. I was a little surprised that Redacted got a second season, not because I didn't think the first series was good. I thought the first series was good. I just kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of hype over Redacted, and it sort of just flew above the surface of being under the radar. And I didn't think it, and so I was quite surprised that they had gotten a series 2. I'm kind of glad they did, and I'm actually hoping they continue this and do a series 3, because I really think there's room for a Doctor Who spinoff that isn't doing what Big Finish is doing. Big Finish is really focusing on doctors and characters within the universe, and what Redacted has done is it has kept itself connected to the Doctor Who universe by bringing in these, peripheral characters here and there, which I hope they continue to do, but also making it its own thing, creating a entity around these characters, these 3 main characters, I think works really well. And we still get a lot of, I don't think there was as many Easter eggy dropped things as there was in the first series. Of course, we didn't get as many episodes this time either, but we had little comments. Like I picked up on one of them just on this last one, where they talked about, they equated the rats in London to the spiders in Derbyshire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was, they were referencing arachnids in
the UK.
UK, yes, thank you. I couldn't remember that.
Well, and she even references the flux in that final episode.
Right, yeah, the flux. And then of course bringing back Mr. Smith, giving Ronnie a little bigger part in this one. I like that they're doing that, and they could continue to cycle in, characters and still live in this little pocket, world of their own here, aside from everything else that everybody's doing. So I think it still really works. It doesn't contradict anything that, in fact, as we were talking about the Ronnie situation, they're not contradicting anything that Big Finish has done. They're acknowledging it, which is a lot of fun too. So it's really cool. I really am looking forward. Hopefully they will announce another season, and I hope they keep going forward.
Yeah, and especially I was a little worried going into this season that it would kind of follow the same format of last year of, we're trying to get the Doctor to come, especially this time she's calling the Doctor constantly, trying to get her to come pick her up. And the fact that the Doctor doesn't actually show up, I think, is a great way to further explore this universe, is doing those Doctor Freeze stories set on Earth that kind of explore either the aftermath of special events that have happened or sightings, et cetera, et cetera. It's always something that's been tiptoed around, but I think this kind of shows that while the story could have had some improvement to it, I think that there is some legs and somewhere to go with it.
Yeah, it proves that you don't need the Doctor to do this series too.
Yeah. The universe is rich enough that they can do it without the Doctor.
Well, and that was one of the things that made the first season so clever, was that it was completely built around the absence of the Doctor, to the point where people couldn't remember them. And it was like, okay, that's a very genius, cool idea to remove the Doctor from your narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Doctor shows up at the end, and it's like, oh, bonus. But when they announced season 2, my first thought was, okay, are we now going to suffer from class syndrome, where you've got this group and they're going to be filled with problems, and well, the Doctor is going to show up to get them out of it every week. You can't do that. And so they once again kind of found a way around that. I don't think it was nearly as clever as the first time. It was just the Doctor's not coming. But I suppose for the character growth of Cleo, that she needed that in order to be able to kind of stand on her own feet. And that honestly is, excuse me, that's the reason to listen to this is, plot aside, it's wonderful to come back and reconnect with these characters and kind of get an update on them and hear them in action again. So I'm with you guys. I kind of hope we get a season 3.
Well, especially they did kind of lay some groundwork, I think, in this season about it, because they've also talked about not just Apex, but Ronnie or somebody, I can't remember who, talks about there's something wrong with the Doctor's timeline or something along those effects of potentially why they weren't showing up. So I think that's something they could further explore in future seasons.
Yeah, it's true.
I also really like how it's a podcast as opposed to something you have to go out and purchase from a company. I like that aspect of it a lot too. That there is another audio format out there that's free for people to listen to.
That's the other thing that I thought was cool too, is they've embraced the American audience with this as well, because last time that they did this, it was released in the UK by itself, and you couldn't get it other than BBC Sounds. I mean, you could get around it with IPs and things like that and get it, but you technically couldn't get it in the US easily, and then it obviously was released later. But this time we didn't get it all dropped at the same time like they did on BBC Sounds. We got it on a weekly basis in, I thought, a very timely manner. So I thought that was kind of nice that they're embracing the UK or the US audience as well, and allowing us to get it for free as well.
And I think we got the first episode the same time as they got all of them.
We did. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that was nice.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about what we got coming up on the schedule.
Well, coming up, we continue with our 60th anniversary tie-in celebrations with the penultimate, or final, depending on how this is going to work, episode of Once and Future, The Union. This is Big Finish's ongoing serial. And then we will get one more episode of that next year sometime that will act as a coda. So... I guess technically I'm going to call this the finale until that episode proves me wrong.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
We will delve into it and also take a look at the story arc as a whole. And then we will have... This is updated, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, okay, sorry. And then we will have a fun and games segment. And we are going to be covering... Doctors and Daleks, the new role-playing game expansion from our friends over at Cubicle 7, who were very gracious to help us out and set us up with that. I'm looking forward to being my first Dungeon Master campaign. Or I guess Game Master.
Game Master, right, yeah. Same thing.
It could be set in a dungeon. We don't know.
It's up to you. You want to put us in a dungeon? Great.
Well, just for that, now it's a dungeon. And then some more 60th anniversary tie-ins with Liberation of the Daleks, the ongoing 14th Doctor comic in Doctor Who magazine, along with the Once Upon a Time Lord from Titan Comics. So all of that, and of course, we're gearing up. We have dates now for the specials.
That's right.
You can listen to our reviews of New Who for what feels like forever.
In exactly a month from now. Well,
1 month from now.
It'll be 1 month and 2 days from now, because we usually record after the Monday after. So, all right. Of course, you can continue to follow us on our website, travelingthevortex.com. If you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on the Patreon link and support us there. When you become a patron of the podcast, you unlock more audios and specials from us. And then also please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast. It helps bump us up in ratings and recommendations. And say hi, give us a review on there, and we may read it out. Make sure you let us know you gave us a review on there so we can go look at it. And then, of course, you can join in the conversation on our listeners forum on Facebook. You can find us on TikTok. You can also find us on X and Instagram. And I promise you, we will start posting on Instagram more often. Anything else we need to talk about before we close this episode? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Dun, dun, dun. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.